Well, welcome to Romera Records virtual cast. Today we have on Daniel. How's it going, man?
Doing fantastic. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for coming on. Yeah, as always, I've had a lot of people on from Podmatch, and that's where I've connected with you. So, if you could, I guess just go ahead and get into who you are, what you do, and kind of how you started.
Definitely. So, I was born in Israel. When I was six, my family and I we moved to China, and this was 2004. It was not westernized at all. There was only Chinese food available, and I was an extremely picky eater. So, I ate basically just McDonald's from 6 to 12. If it wasn't chicken nuggets or hot chocolate, it did not come in my mouth. I didn't consume it. At the age of 12, I started playing basketball, and my brother convinced me that if I want to be healthier, I should expand my diet. And any diet except what I was eating would be a step up. It would be healthier. So I gradually started trying new foods, getting more into nutrition, better dieting. And at the age of uh, 17, I still played basketball, but I started lifting weights and getting more into fitness because I realized that I was confident on the basketball court, but nowhere else. It didn't translate into everyday life. But when I got into better shape, started getting to improving my fitness, I realized that you take your body everywhere you go, no matter what. So it's a much more transferable skill. And because of that, I decided to study to be, a personal trainer. So I went to university in Canada for exercise nutrition degree and worked in a few gyms. Then in 2020, I'm sure your audience has heard there was a lockdown thing going on. So that was no longer an option. And I started my online business. And right now I help men that are 300 pounds get to 200 pounds without going to the gym. And the reason why I chose that demographic is because I think I'm the only one. Everyone else has sort of the same niche. I feel like it's a more unique niche. And also during the 2020 lockdown, I was not prepared for it. I didn't have dumbbells or bands or anything, but I was still able to get myself great results because I had a decade of knowledge of knowing what to do.
So let's go back to when you were talking about just your moves.
Yeah.
How was that for, I guess, just the cultural thing? Like you said, you were eating McDonald's and all this kind of stuff, but like also just your day-to-day life. Like what were you doing?
Right. So I arrived to China at the age of six. So 0 to 6, I was in Israel, but I don't remember anything.
Hmm.
And even the first couple of years in China, I don't remember much because I was a kid and I guess I don't have the best long-term memory of when I was a child. But yeah, I was definitely very different, especially more going from China to Canada. e- Everything's very different.
Hmm.
In China, you walk everywhere, everything. Especially, I lived in a city, and my city was the population of all of Canada,
Mm.
right? So it was all apartments, and you walk everywhere, and you go to the grocery store basically every day or every other day. It's not like you have a huge cart like for Costco. You shop for the week or shop for the month. You don't do that. The street food, everything is just different.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's something that I've noticed about like different countries and like their big city. Well, like even in the difference between a big city and like a small city. So I've
yeah,
lived in rural cities like most of my life and pretty much all of my life, actually. I've never really lived inside of a big city. And right now I'm close to Memphis, Tennessee. I actually live in a city called Cordova, but it's more rural.
mhm,
And if like in big cities, usually people who live inside the city, like that's what you're doing. You're walking around everywhere. You go to a
yeah.
market or something to get food or like the corner store, stuff like that. But that I'm sure is like a big culture shock for most people. But like to be able to do that in completely different cultures, like completely different countries, I'm sure that also is a big difference for you as well.
100%. And to put an extra nice twist on it, a week ago I moved from Canada to Paraguay, and that's another culture shock. Everything's different.
So, all right. So you when did you leave China?
18. So after I graduated high school, I went to university in Canada.
Okay, so Israel from birth to six, right? And then
Yep.
China, you left when you were 18.
Yep.
Did you learn Chinese? Like, were you fluent in it or?
Not really, because I went to an international school. So
Mm,
my entire school was like 200 people, people from Brazil, Korea, all over the place. And yeah, mostly spoke English. I knew how to get around. I knew how to bargain. How much does this cost? That's too expensive. Give me a better price. I know how to say that. That's what you need to get around.
mm.
But I didn't really have conversation with Chinese people. We lived in our own small bubble. And by the time I was in high school, there's a lot of Westerners over there. So only as a kid, it was like I was the only non-Chinese person. And where I live, people just walk up to you and touch you because they're like, I've never seen a person like that. So yeah, that was back then. Now it's very different because it's way more westernized and influenced.
Yeah. So have you been back? No, you said you moved from China to Canada. Have you
Yeah.
have you been back to Israel since?
Yeah, yeah. So I go to Israel every summer because that's where the rest of my family is. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So how was that like knowing that you move around so much and maybe your family doesn't, does it seem like
Yeah.
you pick up on different things from around the country that they might not because are more centralized, they stay in the Israel area?
Yeah, so I should clarify. Like when I met like my cousins and grandparents also in Israel, I went with my two older brothers and my parents, my mom and my dad, to China from Israel to China, and I
Okay.
grew up there. Then I went to Canada,
Mm,
right? So that's not different. But yeah, obviously living in different places, it's a lot easier to, as you mentioned, if you're in a city, it's a lot easier to walk more. Right now here in Paraguay, people eat steak all the time. There's 4 cows for every one person. So it's a lot easier to eat that. And in places like Canada, it's a lot easier to Uber Eats and like order in. So just things that a lot easier to do, and people just tend to do whatever is easier for them, whether it's good or bad.
and so how long were you in Canada?
80 years.
Okay, so
So yeah,
you were pretty
2016 to a week ago.
so you were pretty acclimated to Canadian
Yeah,
lifestyle.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mean that's something I've always been interested in is all the travel that you've done and experiencing completely different culture. It's not like you went from like if you were in the continent of Africa and you moved from like Chad to the Sudan to,
Yeah.
whatever other country like, or
Different continents. Yeah.
yeah, or just in like Europe, like just going from one country, like European countries can be very different, but still same continent, maybe the same weather or stuff like that. But you've
Yeah.
over the place. So
Yep.
what's been your favorite so far?
I've only been in Paraguay a week, and I am biased to say the weather here is way better because in Canada it's negative, super cold, and here's the opposite extreme. Right now it's summer. So in Fahrenheit, I went from 0 or 10 degrees to now 100 degrees.
Mm.
So maybe I'll get sick of this hot weather because it's super hot, but I just moved here and I'd rather it too hot than too cold because too cold in Canada you don't even leave the house.
Yeah.
It's just you order everything in. It's depressing. There's no sunlight. So far, I would say Paraguay is pretty nice.
Now, did you go there before you moved? Like, did you go there often
No,
before you just moved?
but
Oh my God.
same thing with Canada, same thing in China, to be fair. Right. So 0 to 6, obviously, I moved to my dad went back and forth between China and Israel. Is like, yeah, let's move. Things are cheaper there and he can expand his business. So we just moved. And then I've never been to Canada, but I've told the brothers, one of them went to university in Australia, another one went to university in the US. So I'm like, okay, let's try Canada. So moved there. And then I'm like, well, I've been in the same place for 8 years. I want something different. And then I'm like, cool, let's check out this place.
So going back to when you were talking about like playing basketball and stuff like that. So what was the big difference in the different countries as far as staying in shape and stuff like that? Because we
Mm,
all know America, we're great at soccer, football, but the other
yeah.
countries, football is that's their life. we're like, oh,
Right.
football is pretty cool, but we're more in American football, like throwing a pigskin around. But other
Yeah.
countries, it's like that is their thing is football. So what was it like for even basketball or what have you, whatever you tried to do to stay fit? What was it like doing that in the different cultures and countries?
Right. So in in China, people play a lot more basketball now than they used to before. So there are less people to play with, but that's something I like. But in Canada, obviously everyone plays, so that there's a lot more options. So if you have a hobby that you enjoy doing, but nobody in the country plays it, you're gonna not probably play as much or play as competitively,
Yeah.
right? So that's one thing. But also, yeah, whatever you consider is normal is what you'll get used to. So if you think it's normal to eat junk food, you'll eat more junk food. If you think it's normal to walk everywhere, you'll walk everywhere. So I guess what I thought was normal just kept on changing and kept being different. But I thought the average person did. Does
Mm.
that make sense?
Yeah, and that's something I was thinking about because like if you like let's say you're big into rugby and that's another sport
Yeah.
that America really isn't huge into is rugby, but like Australia, like that's what they're known for. It's like all these Australian
Right.
rugby players, and that's where the NFL actually gets most, not most, uh several, I'll say several, kickers and punters is like these rugby punters. They're
Mhm.
great at that, like taking the ball and running with it and then kicking it. That's where the NFL is getting a lot of their punters is from rugby. So being able to adapt and do different things is something that we as humans, should be able to do. Is well, I don't really care for basketball, but that's all these people want to play. So maybe I should play some basketball.
Yeah.
I don't really care for football slash soccer, but that's all these people play. So let me play this. Like being able to do that and having your brain adjust and your body having to adjust to because soccer is very or football is very tiring. So
Yeah, and that's an excellent point because it's if you change your environment, you change your entire life. And this can be in the micro or the micro. If your spouse is overweight, you're way more likely to be overweight. If your spouse is in fantastic shape, you're way more likely to be in fantastic shape. And that can even translate to your neighborhood and to the entire society as a whole. Same thing if your spouse loves healthy food, you're more likely to eat healthy food. And again, that translates to the society as a whole. So obviously you can only control yourself and you should always do whatever you can to get close to your goals, but changing your environment is kind of a cheat code if you want to achieve certain things.
absolutely. And like the food thing you mentioned is a big deal because so I'm from Alabama and I ended up moving to North Dakota when I was in the military and then
Mhm.
I'm currently living in Memphis. And but I've been to a lot of different states. Like I think I've been to like 40 states in the US and
Okay.
something that I've noticed is just like the access to certain foods in the different states. So I would say the North has nowhere near as much like just fried food. Like the South is known
Mhm.
for having fried food. It's just what the Southern people eat. And growing
Yeah.
up here, growing up in the South and then like moving to different areas and noticing like the different kinds of foods that are accessible, it's like, whoa, like what are we doing now? So yeah, just like the different kinds of foods. And even when I was in college, there was some guys that I knew that were from the UK that were on the golf team, and they would talk about like we'd give them food that is normal in the South, and just like sweet tea, like we gave them sweet tea
Yeah.
first time, and they were like, "What is this? Like you took tea that is good for you, and you put so much sugar in it and made it bad for you," and I was like, "That's the South, Mike."
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Mm,
definitely think that
yeah.
it's a culture thing can. or not even just the culture, but what you were saying. Like if your spouse is eating healthy, then you'll probably eat healthy. Like whatever you are surrounding yourself with, that's going to affect who you are and what you do.
100% because individually you can put more effort or less effort in than another person. But if an entire society is significantly overweight in worse shape than another society, it's not that one society is a lot more ambitious, in my opinion. Simply, it's access to what's considered normal and what's more convenient. So sometimes even just moving to a different place will make it a lot easier to achieve your goals. But if you can't do that, then just focus on, if you can't change the entire country, right, just focus on the house. So something as easy as only having healthy options in your house, in your vicinity. You're way less likely to binge on ice cream if you have to drive 20 minutes to eat ice cream than if it's right by the fridge, right? So if you can set yourself up to have a winning environment, then that will be a very good first steps to getting what you want. Because not everybody can just snap their fingers and move to another country. Not everybody has that option. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I guess as far as your day to day right now in Paraguay, like how is that?
I mean, my day is the same regardless of where I'm at, right? Just work out, eat, post content, and check in with clients.
Hmm.
That's what I do regardless. So my job is like flexible, and I think being fit is kind of like having a driver license in the sense that if you are a competent driver, it doesn't matter what country I put you in, you can always go from point A to point B
Hmm.
because you have the skill set. Doesn't matter if it's snowing or it's a highway or it's super hot. Now, again, there's definitely some countries where they don't follow the rules as much, or they might not stop on red, and you have to be more cognizant. So it might be more difficult. I have been to places where I can't even read the menu, but I can still order healthy foods because I have the principles in my head of what to do. As long as there's a picture, or even if there isn't pictures, I can Google Translate a few words and I'll be fine. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely be confused on a lot of that stuff if I were in that position as far as like foods and all that kind of stuff being in different countries because you don't really know like what they got, but if, as you said, if you just understand what what healthy food is, like
Yeah.
vegetables or lean meats, fish, stuff like that, that it's probably going to be healthy. It's just like the small details of something's like covered in butter or something like that. Like you can kind of pick that up and figure out, what kind of food that restaurant is selling or whatever. And then there's always markets. Like, you can go to a market and pick up healthy foods just by, obviously by looking at it. So that's pretty
Yeah.
cool that you've been able to adapt to where you are, especially quickly. You said you only been in Paraguay for like a week, so
Yeah. And to the other end, if I pick up packaged food and it has 50 ingredients, I don't have to read the ingredients. I know it's not healthy. There's nothing that has 50 ingredients that are all fantastic. It doesn't work that way. Usually, one ingredient, whole foods, is the best option.
is it easy to find healthy foods? And like when you were in Canada, and then when you were in Paraguay and even China, as it was it simple to find the foods that you wanted to eat?
It's definitely easier if you know what you're looking for, if you have, as you mentioned, an idea of what's healthy and what's not. So I would say technically the easiest is in Canada, but it's also the easiest to take the wrong things,
Hmm.
right? So in here, there isn't that many options of bad food, but there isn't the very best organic, all of that. So I feel like America and Canada and probably many other Western places probably have more of the extremes of extremely healthy, extremely unhealthy. And people usually go for the extremely unhealthy, which is why society looks the way it does. And here it's things are more in the middle, I would say. But again, obviously, there's still junk food, there's still healthier food options, but things are not as big, so it's difficult to take as much. And the supermarkets are not. gigantic like they are in Canada or the US, I imagine.
Yeah, that's true. What about the variety of food? Do you have a large variety, or is it like seems like everybody's kind of eating the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to enough grocery stores, you can find whatever you want. But within a single grocery store, there is less variety. You can go to Costco in the US and have anything, right? It's like huge, but here there's less options, and there isn't a store that's nearly as big as Costco. So you just don't get as many things. And if you buy in bulk, you're probably going to eat in bulk. If
Mm.
you only buy what you're going to eat and no more, then you probably won't eat extra. You only buy what for the next week or so. Because if you have a bunch of junk food in your house, eventually you'll eat it. If you don't, you probably won't.
Yeah, that's something that I try to explain to people, and it seems crazy, but like you, something that I've kind of picked up is you basically don't want to keep the junk food in the house because, as you said, it's easily accessible. You can just eat it. And
Yeah,
that's where I was saying it sounds crazy. It's like you want to go out to get your junk food. Like you want to order the dessert after the meal. Like you want to do those things because that means that you aren't like, oh yeah, I'll just go home and eat my ice cream at home. It's like, no, there is no ice cream at home. Like there is no cookies and cake at home. Like if you want something, you'd have to order it and it's going to be more expensive. But that's the point is you're like, is it worth it? Is that
exactly. Yeah,
worth it?
yeah, that's a great point. And the entire game of fitness and many things in life is to make it easy to do the healthy right thing and to make it difficult to do the unhealthy wrong thing.
Mm.
And as you mentioned, if the only time you're going to eat ice cream is if it's double the price and a 20-minute drive, you're less likely to eat as much ice cream as if you have a tub in your fridge.
Yeah. Have you heard of the Ninja Creamy?
I've not heard of that specifically.
Dude, this is like the biggest cheat code that I've seen when it comes to like ice cream. So I don't know
Okay.
if you've seen like a Ninja blender, like they've
Yeah,
got the
yeah.
and whatnot, but they have this, I'm gonna say new just because I heard of it probably like several months ago was the first time, but I have one now. But it's called a Ninja Creamy. And basically it gives you like different options to make like ice cream. You can make like sorbet, milkshakes, whatever you want. But it all starts with like a base. So like they give you these containers and you can pour your milk in there. But what I've been doing, because I've been learning from people online, is use non-fat milk or 1% whatever. And use that and you can use like almond milk, whatever you want to use. And then you can put like sugar-free, fat-free pudding mix and then like protein. So like whey protein. And you put that into a container, you blend it up and then you freeze it. And then when you put it inside the Ninja Creamy after it's frozen like overnight, it makes delicious ice cream. And again, it's like no fat in there and it's got protein in it. And I was like, dude, this is like the biggest cheat code. Now, some people do get carried away and they'll put like
Yeah.
whole fat milk and it's like, all right, if you're trying to cheat or if you're just trying to have some ice cream, then sure, by all means, you can do that. But
Yeah.
it's great putting just like non-fat milk or 1% milk and and just putting like your protein in there and then just kind of leaving it at that without all the extra sugar and fat in there because it tastes great and it's still just it's ice cream. It's great ice cream that's cheap. But have you experienced any type of foods or anything like that that you have stumbled upon that you're like, man, this isn't the real thing. Like a
Yeah.
lot of vegans are having their impossible burger.
Beyond meat. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So is there anything that you've been
Yeah. So
experimenting with?
I have, I guess, two hacks for ice cream that are pretty similar. So the first one is Greek yogurt with Crystal Light. Crystal Light is what people use in water filters to make the water taste better. You should be able to find it in any grocery store by the water filter section, maybe even in some gas stations. So there's many flavors. So if you don't like the first one, try a different flavor. And basically, You just take a bunch of yogurt and open a pack and mix it in together. And the taste is super strong. So Greek yogurt, three-fourths of a cup, which is one serving, is like 17 grams of protein and 100 calories. So super, super solid. And the entire pack of Crystal Light is like 10 calories. And the entire pack would be more than what you need for one serving of yogurt. Even three serving of yogurt, it's still feel very sweet. Probably too sweet for the whole crystallized package. So just mix it in and then it tastes pretty close to Your Play ice cream. You can try
Oh,
that. Uh, I also like soft and crunchy. I think that's a good combo. So you can put like either frozen blueberries or you can even put a bit of granola or like protein cereal, anything that would be a good mix. And the other hack, it can just be if you can't find Crystal Light, just do Greek yogurt. Then you can put protein powder, so that's an extra protein, and then you can put some dark chocolate, blueberries, papaya, mix it all, and then before you put the chocolate, actually, or even with, it doesn't really matter, put in the freezer for a few minutes, and then it's colder and feels more like ice cream.
okay. I think I just recently heard about the Crystal Light in yogurt. I was like, what? I was like, what is this right
Mhm.
now? But
Yeah,
yeah, I guess it's catching on.
no, it's legit. It's good.
I saw this other guy. My God, it sounds so gross, but he mixed egg whites with chocolate syrup. And I was like, that sounds disgusting. But he was like, this whole container of egg whites is 100 grams of protein, zero
Yeah.
fat. And you just mix it with this like 5 calorie chocolate syrup. And it's delicious. And I was like, oh my God. I don't know about that.
The good thing about health and fitness is you don't have to like what everyone else likes. You just need to find a few healthy and tasty foods that are ideally high in protein, low in calories, super filling, and you're good. So what might sound disgusting to you might be fantastic for another person, and what you think is fantastic might be disgusting to another person. So yeah, I don't think that would taste good, but to each his own, right? Find what tastes good for you, and if you find those, then you've won.
So have you had to sacrifice or compromise your nutrition for fitness or fitness for nutrition at any point where you like didn't have access to staying fit as far as like running or exercising? So you were like, well, let me make sure I'm eating right. Has there been any kind of trade-off or sacrifice you've had to make?
I would say there's always some kind of trade-off or sacrifice, but if you're adaptable, then it doesn't really affect you. And I think that's the actual goal because anybody can lose weight and get fit and get 8 hours of sleep for a single month. But if you look on a longer time horizon, the reason most people are not fit and are not healthy is because they're not able to sustain it. They're only able to win under perfect conditions,
Mm,
which is why the best time to start is when life is most chaotic, when conditions are not perfect. And it's good to know and work with people that haven't been the same place the entire life, because then they only know that place. If they go to different cultures or work with people that have crazy hour jobs or have done different things, then it's a lot more realistic. Because to lose 20 pounds, you can do literally anything. But most people, after they lose the 20 pounds, they gain it right back because they didn't change their habits, who they are. So that's that's the practical point, but also the mental point is whenever life throws a curveball at you, be like, oh, fantastic, perfect. This is another chance to prove to myself that I can overcome this no matter the condition. If I can overcome when things are extra difficult, then when life eventually does get smooth, it'll be a lot easier to continue.
absolutely. And I think that's the hardest part about it. And I tell people all the time, I think it's easy to to finally comprehend what you're doing once you've got it, because at the beginning it's very difficult. It's very difficult
Yeah.
to get yourself in that mode of this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm eating, this is how I'm working out. done deal, no excuses. That's difficult. It's easy once you have built a system for yourself and you're like, okay, this is what I'm doing. Let me just keep doing that. Because even for me, like it took me a while to realize like how much muscle that I put on my body because after I built it, it just kind of stays as long as you eat
Yeah,
right and just consistently do something. So I think a lot of people get discouraged to look a certain way because they're like, well, I haven't made it yet. Like I've been working out for 2 weeks, man. I don't look the way I want to look. It's like, well, it takes
yeah,
a while.
definitely. A good quote that I like is people don't hate waiting, they hate waiting longer than they expected.
Mm,
So if you just increase the time horizon, which you measure yourself, you probably will make you'll probably be happy with the progress that you made as long as you're actually trying and actually putting in effort. Because even if you do everything right, you're trying to lose weight as an example, it's not going to be linear. It's still going to be all over the place. And a good way to think about it is if you look at the weather from summer to winter, yeah, it's going to get colder. However, just because there's a day in November that's hotter than a day in August, doesn't mean that the sun is no longer working, doesn't mean that seasons are a scam, doesn't mean that the earth should turn the other way. None of that. The earth just keeps doing its thing and eventually it gets colder. So even if you're doing everything right and you're 3 pounds heavier than you were a few days ago, okay, keep doing what you're doing. It doesn't matter. As long as you keep doing the right things, eventually you'll get to where you want to get to.
I have never heard that analogy, but that is the most perfect analogy
I
for
appreciate that. Took me a while to come up with it.
that is insane. Because yeah, like literally, a lot of times people be trying to lose weight and then they'll gain a little bit and they'll lose a little bit, gain a little bit, lose a little bit, gain a lot, lose a little bit, and they just get so discouraged. But it's like, the weather doesn't even stay the same. The weather is not linear. Just because it's getting colder doesn't mean it's going to get like 1 degree colder every single day. Like it's
Yeah,
going to get hot, it's going to get cold, it's going to get hot and then cold. Like, yeah, that's a great analogy.
I appreciate that. Another, because all the analogies I come up with, are obviously just to check-in calls with my clients, and the actual job, I believe, of fitness coaches is to change people's beliefs
Mhm.
of what they think is true. Because everyone knows to eat less and move more. But I still believe that if you take somebody who's fit and unfit, the person that's not fit believes things about the world that are not true. And I believe that also can translate into everything. So if you take somebody who has no friends and is socially incompetent, that person has certain beliefs about social dynamics and other people that are not true compared to another person who is socially open. Same thing with finances. People that have no money believe things about the world that are not true, and people that are wealthy and well-to-do see the world as it is. They have a clear lens of how reality actually works, and that's why so many people are able to lose all the money and then gain back the money. Some people are able to get in awful shape and get back into amazing shape because they have certain beliefs of how the world works, how things actually are compared to a bunch of false beliefs. And the difficult thing about false beliefs is you don't even know what you don't know. You don't know the you don't know what you're missing. That is why having a coach and having to be like, hey, I know it's likely that you think this, but that's not reality.
Yeah, that's true. Like that's really a definite advantage of having a coach is they have probably seen so many people and issues and circumstances, situations that you are unable to see it because you haven't been through it or you haven't seen somebody else do it. So you're so worried about your own situation that you aren't really paying attention to what you could be doing because you're too worried about something that you don't know. The famous saying, you don't know what you don't know, but
Yeah.
your coach might know. So so they are able to help you kind of refocus and have that vision of what you should be doing. So yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, and often what people think they're missing is not what they're actually missing, and they keep reinforcing the wrong habit. So I can just have a conversation with someone and they won't even mention leftovers, but I can just, based on talking to so many people, I can be like, hey, you have kids. When they don't finish their ice cream, do you eat the leftovers because you don't want to throw food away? They're like, yeah, I do. Okay, why do you do that? Because you said you don't even like the taste. They are full. You finishing the food on your plate is not helping anyone at all. So that's a mentality that a lot of people have. A lot of people heard, hey, finish the food on your plate, don't waste food, all of that. But that's a false belief. That is objectively false. Because something I try to ingrain into people's head is whether you throw away the food or eat it, that is not going to put more money in your bank account. That is not going to stop children in China from being hungry. That it doesn't work that way. And also, don't call it a waste because throwing food is not a waste. You should always look at it as a huge win for you and for society when you throw away food, because right now there's a bus in your city that's running. The fact that you are not on the bus doesn't mean that the bus is wasting energy. It's spending the energy anyways. It's not like, oh, I don't want to waste the bus's energy. I'm just going to be on the bus all day. That's not a correct mentality to have. As soon as you paid for the food, it's done. Whether you eat it or not, that's not going to affect your financial situation. Whether you eat it or not, that's not going to have any positive impact on you. So, as obvious as it sounds, if you order cake or ice cream and you don't love the taste, don't eat it. Stop. That'll make a huge difference. If your kids didn't finish their food and you don't like what they ate, don't eat it. It's fine. Throw it away, food. Throw it away. If you feel full, don't keep eating. The only negative things can happen from that.
I'm gonna make sure my wife hears this podcast because that's how she grew up was like, and I grew
Yeah,
up a little bit like that, but my parents never really made me eat food. It was if you like it, good. If you don't like it, you're gonna starve. So you got the choice: eat it or don't. And
yeah,
that's my wife. She said that her parents pretty much would make her eat the food, and so and finish her food. So she says that's why she's like that now, is because she was always taught to finish her food. But I think a lot of people are probably taught that way because, back in the day, like I'm 31, my parents, they probably had scarcity of food. They probably didn't,
yeah,
not everybody had as much food as you wanted, or, they didn't make as much money back then, but also equivalent to maybe they thought food was expensive or whatever. So,
yeah,
um, yeah, definitely people have that kind of mindset and that attitude of, well, even though I didn't like it, I bought it, so I need to eat it. And it's like, you don't. And you already bought it. It's that transaction is over with. Now you're
yeah.
just having a fight with your diet at this point.
Exactly. People have a psychological bias that if they spend money, they might as well utilize it. But if you paid money for a concert and the concert is on the day where it's super raining and stormy and you're going to have a horrible time, would you sacrifice how good you feel because you don't want to waste it? No, it doesn't make sense. The ticket is already paid. If you're going to enjoy more watching a movie than going to the concert, even though you already paid for the concert, still staying at home watching a movie is the better choice.
Yeah, I've done a many of things where I've realized, like, even though I spent this money, I don't want to do that thing. So I'm
Yeah,
just going ahead and going to do something else because life is life is way too short for you to just be doing things just to be doing them. It's better to have that agenda of, oh yeah, let me go do the thing that I actually want to do. So by the way, with your coaching, what exactly like the principles are you kind of teaching? What kind of workouts or training have you been doing?
I love how you said principles because principles apply to 100% of humans at all times. And part of what I teach is the difference between principles and personal preferences. Principles is burn more calories than you consume, you lose weight. That applies to 100% of humans. I don't care how much you weigh, you're no exception. There's an exception to that. Our personal preference is keto, intermittent fasting, vegan, any of that. So a big thing of what I do, I only do one-on-one coaching because I believe if you give people a PDF, that's not enough. That's not going to change their life. You need to actually talk to them and see what's actually holding them back. And again, as I mentioned many times, it's not what people think it is. So I see what my clients eat. I give them different workouts, right? Teach them different principles, especially for people that travel a lot, have a lot of things going on, because it's easy to give advice when things are smooth, when there's nothing going on. But if you have 1,000 things going on, then that takes a lot more strategy, especially if you want to make this a lifestyle.
Yeah, that's something that I think a lot of people fail to do is understanding like what are you really trying to accomplish? Like at the end of the day, like when I work out, if I'm, eating a certain way, like what am I trying to accomplish to build upon that foundation? Like as you said, you liked when I said principles, like what what am I doing on a day-to-day basis that's going to benefit me, later on in life? Like, am I going to be able to keep this up for a year, for 5 years, for 10 years, 20 years, the rest of my life? What are you doing that is going to keep you in the shape that you want to be in? And I think, with you really understanding like, hey, this one-on-one is going to be way more impactful than me just giving you this PDF or anything like that. You're building your foundation, your principle on, hey, whoever I'm talking to, get this into your head, the things I'm trying to tell you. And I care about what we're talking about instead of just like, oh yep, they're just another person. Here's this PDF and go do,
Yeah.
figure it out.
And I'm just picking up on what you say and be like, that give me an idea. So you said the word foundation. If you were to build a building that's 10 stories high, the foundation would be completely different than if you were to build a building that's 100-story high. And if you're trying to get to 30 stories with a 10-story building, the building will collapse. But with a 100-story building foundation, you can keep leveling it up. So a big reason why people lose weight, then they plateau, then they gain weight, then lose weight and plateau, is because they didn't build the foundation correctly. They only focused on building up rather than doing it more strategically, and that way they can get longer term results. And that's why the people that I work with don't need to lose 20 pounds, they need to lose close to 100 pounds. The entire strategy behind it is way different because losing 100 pounds isn't 5 times more difficult than losing 20 pounds. It's 1,000 times more difficult because you have to change who you are as a person.
Mm.
To lose 20 pounds, again, you can do literally anything, but you probably gain back. But to lose 100 pounds and keep it off for good, it's who you are as a person, it's your mentality, it's how you approach things when things are not ideal, when things are extremely not convenient.
Yeah, that's a crazy concept to think about because you're saying, if I need to lose 20 pounds, I need to change what I'm doing. But if I want to lose 100 pounds, I need to change who I am. And
Yeah.
that's a really wild realization that some people need to have with themselves is because you can change, going out to eat at whatever restaurant, once a week and all that kind of stuff. You change those, this is what I'm doing, and you can lose those 20 pounds and, go to the gym a couple of times more. But if you want to lose 100 or more pounds, you're not the same person. Like
Yeah.
that's what you always say to somebody who you've seen lose a lot of weight. You're like, oh my God, I didn't recognize you. Yeah, that's not the same person.
Yeah. It's a different person.
And if you are able to do those things, then you should feel different. Like you should feel like you're not the same person. Like there's this guy, he makes these funny videos online where he's just running, he's just sprinting full speed, but like he has something added with it. Like one time he was like being chased by a friend and they're wearing like different
Mm.
costumes. But one time he was sprinting and then it was him sprinting with 10 pounds. So he had like 5 pounds in each weight. And then they just keep upping the weight to like 20 pounds, 60 pounds,
Yeah.
100 pounds. And I'm just like, that's people who are watching this. If you watch how slow he gets when he's holding the weight, that should tell you how much effort it takes to just be that much heavier. Like this guy probably
Yeah.
weighed like 170, maybe 180, but at one point he was running with like 100 and something pounds. So that would have been him at like 200 and something pounds. So that shows
Yeah.
you how much just sheer weight can slow you down as a person, and how, as we just said, change you. It's a completely different human being if he were to just drop those weights and just run regularly.
100%. Yeah. It's impossible for you to change your fitness drastically without improving your mental state drastically as well.
Yeah, and that should change your activities, right? Like if you are, let's say you're 300 pounds and you decide to lose 100 pounds, you have just increased the amount of activities that you're literally allowed to do. Like there are things
Yeah.
that you just can't do if you weigh 300 pounds, like maybe like bungee jumping, like they probably have a weight limit on that kind of stuff, or skydiving. I had a friend who was too heavy to go skydiving. He needed to lose some weight.
Yeah.
Like these are things that you literally have to be a certain weight to do. And so if you lose weight and are really committed to it, your life just expands as far as the things you're allowed to do and can do, because now you're healthier as a person.
1%. And more than the one-off adventures like skydiving or things of that nature, the day-to-day life, almost everyone that goes from 300 pounds to 200 pounds in my experience gets off CPAP, which is a big pain point for a lot of people that are that weight. It's a lot easier to sleep if they don't need to be attached to that, right? And also just fitting better into your clothes whenever they're traveling, either in a car or either in a plane. First class being 300 pounds doesn't feel as good as being 170 in economy, right? So everything is different, and the experience of life, right? How people view you when you first meet them, they will make a first impression on you based on if you look like you take care of yourself or not.
Absolutely. I think that if you are able to just increase your life activities, then you have increased your life expectancy, because now you become happier as a person. You have become you just enjoy things more. You enjoy being with family, whatever it is. Like everything isn't a struggle to do. So I definitely feel that way about being at the right weight and stuff like that. So what are some things that you're doing, like some things that you plan to do in the future, as far as like innovation of your training, your principles? Like, what are some things that you have going for you?
In terms of like my business or the way I
Yeah,
go through
yeah,
my
in your
fitness.
business, as far as like so
Okay.
you might be discovering new ways of working out, researching like different people and different principles, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So the more I travel, the more countries I go to, especially that, I can relate to more people that live in different countries and travel more, right? And obviously, when I have kids, I can relate to people that have kids. Or even if my schedule is super busy, I can relate to other people that have a lot of things going on. Because a lot of people think that being a fitness coach is an an active job, but I would say a fitness coach is a sedentary job. Fitness coaches are people with sedentary jobs who also have an active lifestyle, and that's something anybody can emulate. Because if you're a construction worker, then you have an active job. But if you work at a desk, then you have a sedentary lifestyle. However, I also work at a desk. I work at a computer. That is how you influence people's life, not through doing a bunch of push-ups, right? So because I'm able to relate to my clients and also talk to different people and gather more experience and come up with more metaphors that allow people to change their beliefs and change for good. I just want to keep going and keep doing what I'm doing. I think that everyone that, as soon as they make some money from fitness coaching, they start teaching other fitness coaches how they did it. I have zero intention anytime in the near future to be in the money making niche, right? I just want to be the best at what I do. And I also believe I have a unique niche in terms of if you look at other fitness coaches, almost everyone says, I help entrepreneurs lose weight, build muscle while eating the favorite foods in little time, somewhere along those lines. But I say I help people that are 300 pounds get to 200 pounds without going to the gym. That's more unique. And I believe that if you lose 20 pounds, your life would be incrementally better. If you lose 100 pounds, you're a different person, your life is way better. So there's no arguing with how much value you can provide.
Absolutely. Those are very key things for people, and I definitely commend you for doing those things, and it's awesome that you're able to make that connection with people as you travel. You're continuously meeting different cultures and different people, and being able to learn, what people are into, how they can change their lifestyle to become healthier individuals, and to be who they really want to be and be able to do the things they really want to do. So I think all of that is awesome. But yeah,
Appreciate that.
it's about time that we wrap this up. If you could just give people like any contact info, websites, social media, whatever you've got, just go ahead and let people know.
Also, I am most active on Twitter or X at Daniel Raz underscore Fet. Also on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, search me up, Daniel Raz Fet or Daniel Raz underscore Fet. And my website is danielrazfit.com. So that's DANIELRAZFIT.com. And if you're serious about sustainably losing weight and keeping it off for good, let me know. I have more testimonials than you can comprehend. I'll share it with you and we'll get on a call to see if us working together makes sense.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom on just traveling, the people you've met, the cultures, the food, fitness, all that kind of stuff is very important for people to know how that how they can adapt, and if they decide to change their scenery, how they're able to do so. So thank you again for spreading that info.
Definitely. I really appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. Well, thank you for everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.